Welcome back. Well, Energy and Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen has written an article in today's Australian newspaper titled "Climate Skeptics Deny Potential for Economic Boom for Renewables." Let's get more on this story, and joining us live is National Senator M.Canavan. Great to see you as always, Senator. The article talks about Chris Bowen saying net zero isn't for fun, and certainly his take on it is, renewables backed by gas firming is the most sensible and cheapest way to get to net zero. What do you think about these comments in the paper today?
Well, I agree with Chris Bowen that net zero is not fun. I don't think many Australians are having fun right now seeing their electricity bills surge. I mean, since we adopted net zero, electricity prices in Australia have gone up 30%, gas prices 40%. It's definitely not fun for Australians having to pay those shocking bill increases. It's not fun. Net zero is not fun for the thousands of Australian workers whose jobs are on the line, mostly in regional Australia. We've already lost our nickel industry since we signed up to net zero because Indonesia had no problem building coal-fired power stations financed by China. They massively expanded nickel capacity and shut down our nickel jobs here in Australia. Now we're at risk of losing copper, at risk of losing lead, zinc, steel. Thousands of Australian jobs are on the line because we are not prioritising the use of our energy resources to lower energy prices. At the heart of this debate is a choice about priorities. In my view, we should run the Australian energy system to deliver the cheapest energy prices for Australians. In Chris Bowen's view, he thinks we should run the Australian energy system to try and change the temperature of the globe. I think that latter one is fantastical, ridiculous. It doesn't deliver environmental benefits. And all we've seen in the lived experience of net zero is higher prices and fewer jobs. Net zero is not a good deal for Australia.
So many people would disagree with that, and they think the race to net zero is really important for our climate. So how can we do it in a different way?
Well, I don't agree with that. I mean, how is us pursuing this goal of net zero going to?
Target?
Yeah, but how? The key thing here is how is that going to deliver a benefit to the Australian people? We are just merely 1% of global emissions. It is very clear that other countries are not pursuing this target with the zeal that we are. So why would we self-flagellate ourselves, cost ourselves jobs, make life harder for average working Australians? When there is zero environmental benefit? We're not going to actually change the temperature of the globe. We're not going to change the risk of bushfires or cyclones on our own.
Okay.
And Chris Bowen's in the paper today saying, oh, China and India are building renewables. What he doesn't say, he just completely glosses over, is that China and India are building massive amounts of coal-fired power stations. I mean, since China and India, they signed up to net zero, right? We take them at face value, apparently. We're stupid and naive. Since they signed up to net zero, China has increased its coal mining by 654 million tonnes a year. India's increased it by 273 million tonnes a year, and their coal mining. To put that in context, the Adani Carmichael mine is 10 million tonnes a year. So China's opened up 65 Adanis, India 27 in 3 years. And we sit back here and are not allowed to use an ounce of coal. We are mad and stupid, and frankly, the Labor Party's getting what it deserves. It's not delivering a good result for Australians.
All right, so what would you do if the coalition was in power and you could look at it from a world perspective, perhaps in terms of not just Australia, but what's happening across the world with coal and the like?
I'd just use our resources. I would have a very simple rule. If I was in charge for a day, I would have a very simple rule. If something is good enough for us to sell to other countries, it is good enough for us to use too. So we are exporting
what about if we
massive
lifted the
amounts
bans?
of coal. We're a big...
What if we lifted the bans?
Absolutely, same principle, right?
But obviously with the coalition, they wanted to build 7 nuclear power stations put forward last week, which many professors were saying to us at the university in terms of nuclear. They were saying we could play a significant role in lowering emissions across the country or the world if we just lifted those bans, not even looked at making our own power stations.
Yeah, look, I agree with that too. I mean, we should be Well, my priority is to help the Australian people, and these bans on uranium mining, bans on the development of our resources sector hurts the Australian people because it makes us poorer. So there is obviously an enormous demand for our high-quality resources. There's enormous demand, surging demand for uranium because the rest of the world is building nuclear power stations. 30 countries around the world have committed to triple nuclear power in the next generation. And that is leading to a surge in uranium demand. We've got the world's largest uranium resources. Of course, we should be taking advantage of that opportunity. Instead, the government has been telling us fairy tales that somehow we could export this thing called hydrogen. You remember they promised us heaps of these hydrogen jobs, hydrogen hubs all around the place. They've all turned out to be white elephants. We've wasted billions of dollars. There are now no jobs in them and no future prospects, no immediate future prospects of Australia exporting any amounts of hydrogen. Yet we have this massive uranium reserve under our feet, which is in great demand. Let's unlock that potential as well. As I say, though, go back to what I was saying, if we're going to export the uranium to other countries, particularly countries that compete with us, potentially take our manufacturing jobs if they're more competitive than us, surely we should be using that uranium too. We should be not tying one hand behind our back and hurting our own manufacturing industry while helping another country's manufacturing industry by providing them energy resources.
All right, Senator, we've got about 30 seconds to go, but the Australian Financial Review recently came out with a report. The first REZ, Renewable Energy Zone in New South Wales, has blown out 8 times more than what it was initially set out to be. Why is that? Because it's blown in size as well, but what is the main reason, do you think, that it's increased the price so much?
Well, look, clearly a lot of people had optimistic expectations about the cost of renewable energy, and that has defrauded the Australian people into thinking that renewable energy was going to be cheap. It's not just this one project that's blown out. As you say, that project's gotten a bit bigger in size, but it's still almost a 10 times blowout. We've seen Snowy Hydro blow out in cost. We've seen the VNI West project blow out in cost. We saw Copper String blow out in cost. I've had a look at 6 transmission lines around the country. Just 6 of them have blown out to the tune of $28 billion in just the last few years. They're now costing a total of over $40 billion, and none of them are being cancelled or reined in. I mean, you think you get those sort of cost blowouts. Maybe we should have a little bit of look at whether this is the smartest strategy. Maybe we should think of other options like building coal-fired power stations, nuclear power stations, where we wouldn't need to take up so much land and so much cost in building new transmission lines. But
wouldn't they go up in price as well?
Well, it'll be a lot cheaper. I mean, even if you take the ridiculous assumptions of the CSIRO, they cost this advanced ultra-supercritical coal-fired power technology, which no one's built in any serious way yet, to load the dice against coal. Even if you took their assumptions, you'd be able to build 6 high-efficiency, low-emission coal-fired power stations for the cost of that $40 billion transmission rollout. Now, I don't think we need 6, so we could save money, and I don't think it'll cost us $6 billion a plant because, as I say, we could just use off-the-shelf ultra-supercritical technologies, not the advanced ultra-supercritical technologies, but the CSIRO refused to cost that because seemingly they don't want to embarrass themselves by having to admit they've been wrong for the last 7 or 8 years, telling us that renewable energy is cheaper.
Senator M.Canavan, great to see you as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
New South Wales